Hello everyone, I'm Robin the Delta Crafter and I want to thank you for joining me for another video on my YouTube channel. Today I'm going to be sharing with you 4 different ways to use one background stamp. And I even have a bonus for you today. So let's go ahead and get started. I'm going to be using the hand-drawn snowflake stamp from Hero Art. This 6x6 background clean stamp was a part of the December 2022 Hero Arts kit that could be purchased from Joann's. This is an exclusive collaboration that Hero Arts and Joann have together. So for our card panels today, I'm going to be using some Neenah Classic Crest Solar White cardstock in the 80-pound weight. Notice that I've taken the mat out of my Misty. Because this is a rubber clean stamp, I need that extra space. So I'm going to put a little bit of repositionable adhesive on the back of my cardstock panel, and I'm going to secure that to the inside of my Misty. So I'm pressing that in place. So for all of the panels that we're going to be making today, I'm going to be using some inks from Pinkfresh Studio. So we have Slumber, Blue Jay, Sapphire, and Stargazer that we're going to be using right now. And these are all different shades of blue, going from a pale blue to a dark, intense blue, and that's Stargazer. So the very first technique that we're going to do is we're going to do some ombre stamping. So I'm going to start at the top of my stamp with my very lightest color. In this case, that will be that light blue color called Slumber. So I'm going to put that at the very top of my stamp. I'm going to visually kind of break my stamp up into fourths because I have 4 different shades of blue that I'll be using. So I did the top fourth with the Slumber, and now I'm going to come in with the second fourth and take it and use Blue Jay and kind of take it to the middle of my stamp. You can't hardly tell right here, but I am holding my stamp pad, ink pad, at an angle, because I don't want that ink to get over the, be stamped on the entire background stamp. So now I'm going to come in with that third color of Sapphire, and I'm going to add that to that section of like almost to the bottom section, next to the bottom section. And then I'm going to cover that last section with my darkest color, which is Stargazer. Now for an ombre effect to be really visible, you're going to need to stamp your image probably more than once. So I ended up stamping mine twice. So I'm going to pull my door of my Misty back here, and you can see that ombre, not only is it kind of light, but you can also kind of see the line between where I changed from one ink to the next. By stamping it twice, those lines kind of fade away, as well as you're able to get a deeper and darker impression with your inks, and your stamping, your ombre effect will show up better. Let's move into our second technique, which will be ombre ink blending. Very similar to the first technique that we did, but instead of stamping our ombre, we're going to be ink blending our ombre. So just like I did with the first technique, I'm going to come in with my lightest color first. And for this one, I'm going to go at an angle instead of going straight across. So that's another way that you can switch things up. You can change the direction of your inking. So I'll put down my Slumber. Now I'm coming in with Blue Jay. I'm going to fill in my third color with Sapphire. My Sapphire ink pad needs some re-inking, so I'm going to have to order that re-inker really soon. And then I'm going to add that last color of Stargazer to the bottom corner. And as I always do with my ink blending, my ombre ink blending, or any type of ink blending for that matter, I always work my way back through the inks so that I can get a good blend between all of the colors. And you can see that result here. I know some of the areas look a little bit darker because the ink was laid down pretty heavy. But remember, at this point, the ink has not dried back into the paper. And once that happens, you'll be able to, the darker areas will kind of even out, and then you'll really be able to see a distinct difference between all of the colors. So now that my I've got my panel inked up, I'm going to place it into my Misty. And I'm going to run my Rabbit Hole Designs powder tool all over my panel. I'm going to be doing some heat embossing on this panel, and because I have inked up this entire panel, it is still kind of wet with that ink. So I want to make sure that my embossing powder does not stick to places that I don't want it to. So hitting your design with a heat tool and using your powder tool will help with that. I'm going to come in with some Versamark ink, which is a clear sticky ink, and I'm going to stamp my image. I'm actually going to stamp it twice to make sure that the snowflakes are really defined all over this panel. Now I'm going to use clear embossing powder for this design. Another way that you might want to use this design is to go ahead and layer white embossing powder, or even silver for that matter. Gold would be beautiful as well. But I chose to use silver because I'm going to do, this is where my bonus technique comes in. I'm sorry, clear. I chose clear because this is where my bonus technique comes in. So I'm going to hit my embossing powder with my heat tool, and you can see where the ombre is really being highlighted because of that clear embossing powder. So what I'm going for here is I want all of the ombre inking that I did to be highlighted and really show through by using that clear embossing powder. The clear is going to kind of amplify all of that embossing. And here's the reason why. I'm going to come back over this entire background now with some black soot ink. So our bonus technique is to blacken our image. What this is going to do is now we're going to have ombre snowflakes coming and peeking through our background. I think this just might be my favorite panel that I created of all of the techniques that I'm showing in the video today. So I'm going to come in with the black soot or any black ink that you have, and you're going to cover your panel, your entire panel. Now keep in mind, we have a lot of ombre ink on the bottom, and now we're coming in with a black ink on top. So our paper is going to be pretty saturated with ink. So just take care when you're ink blending to make sure that your paper, you don't tear your paper, because it will be a little bit wet. And now we're going to buff away any of that black ink that's sitting on top of our embossed images, our heat embossed images. And that's going to make our snowflakes really, really pop. Can you see all of those different shades of blue that are shining through under that clear embossed powder? I absolutely love the way this panel came together. For our third technique, we're going to be doing some layered stamping. So again, we're coming in with this snowflake stamp. We're going to use some light blue cardstock for this stamping technique. You can do this on regular white cardstock, but I decided to use this one. Use some light blue cardstock for this technique. I'm going to bring in 2 of those blue colors. So we're going to kind of have a little bit of a tone-on-tone kind of effect going. So I'm going to use the Slumber ink first, and I'm going to cover my entire image with the Slumber ink, and I'm going to press that and stamp that onto my image. I'm going to clean my stamp off, and then we're going to take our cardstock and we're going to turn it 180 degrees. Then we're going to place it right back into our Misty in the exact same place that we had it before. Coming in with the Blue Jay ink, which is our darker ink, and I'm going to layer that on top of the Slumber ink that we had before. And so we're going to kind of get a layered effect on that stamping. For our fourth technique, we're going to do shadow stamping. So this is similar to technique number 3, but this time we're going to start out with some gray or Misty ink. That's also from Pinkfresh Studio, and it's just going to give us kind of a light, very light stamping of the image on our paper. So I'm going to take my cardstock and I'm going to move it to the right a couple of spaces. So probably an inch that I moved it over, because this is a 6x6 stamped image, and so I can the stamp is larger than my cardstock, so I can use different areas. And now I'm going to come in with Slumber, which is a pale, that palest light, the lightest blue that we have. And I'm going to stamp that image, same image again, but with the lighter blue color. So what we're kind of creating is a multi-layered, kind of shadowed image in of our stamping. So the gray is kind of fading into the background. So if you think about perspective on a photograph, there are some things that are way off in the distant. That's what our gray is representing. And then there's some things that are in the foreground or in the forefront, and that's what the Slumber is representing. So here are 3 of the completed panels that we created today, and I turned 3 of those into cards. Off camera, I took a couple of greeting and sentiment sets from Honeybee Stamps and die cut some greetings for us. I wanted to keep the sentiments pretty simple since what I really wanted to shine through was the effects and the what we were able to achieve on our background panels. I am going to add a few embellishments to my cards using some Studio Katia drops as well as a few silver baubles from Pinkfresh Studio. I'm just going to place a couple of those around the cards. Not quite sure which color I'm going to use on which panel. And using my jewel picker, I'm able to pick those up and adhere those with some Barely Arts glue. The products that I'm using today will be listed and linked below in the description box, as well as on my coordinating blog post on thedeltacrafter.com. Be sure to check that out if you're interested in grabbing any of these products. So some of these little baubles and things can be quite squirrely, so I'm figuring out which ones I want to put where. And again, I'm using my jewel picker as well as some Barely Arts glue to adhere all the baubles and clear drops to the card bases. These are some really fun and easy techniques that can be used with any background stamp that you may have in your stash. Let me know in the comments below which one of these techniques is your favorite. I know I have my favorite, but I'd love to hear from you guys. And with that, all of our cards are complete. I want to thank you for joining me for another video on my YouTube channel. If you have enjoyed this video, please consider giving it a thumbs up and subscribing to the channel. You can also find me on Instagram and Facebook at The Delta Crafter, as well as on my blog, thedeltacrafter.com. If you all are inspired to use some of these techniques and post your creations on social media, be sure to tag me. I'd love to see what you created and how you use these techniques. I want to thank you for joining me for another video on my YouTube channel. And until next time, everyone, enjoy!